You ever get sick of all of that time management self-care advice you have? And they're saying the same things. Most of them say the same things. And you're like, well, actually, it's not going to work in my particular situation. And I found myself, even though I have pretty good time management skills, it kind of went out the window. And I kind of needed to go back to a fundamental principle called the bare minimum. It's actually the place to start where you feel like you can't handle it anymore. You're listening to the Bear in Mind podcast, episode 150.
A podcast that breaks it down so you can break the cycle for good. Now, your host, Tara Rama, but you can call her T.
I have a quick side note. I actually recorded this episode and I had to re-record it because my voice sounded like a chipmunk and I couldn't figure out how to fix it. So someone in my coaching, one of my peers said, sometimes you just need to go redo it. Don't bother looking for the deleted file or trying to correct the deleted file. And so here we are, loving the bare minimum. And I had a recent conversation with a social worker, and it really changed how I looked at the bare minimum. Because this is a concept I was taught when I was getting certified as a life coach about going back to the bare minimum. Whenever you kind of feel lost, whenever you feel like things are out of control, come back to the bare minimum. But a lot of times that definition is still listed with a lot of things, like exercise would be the bare minimum, or having a clean house would be the bare minimum. And when I spoke to the social worker, she gave me a new definition. So this is a social worker that comes to people's houses to assess if it is safe for children to grow up. And one of the things that he or she looks at, and I was talking to a woman, she said that we look to make sure that the house is safe for the child, physically safe, that the walls aren't caving in, there's no rats living there, the windows are safe, that they can't fall out. So everything in the house is there for physical safety. And then the other second thing that they look for is no physical abuse. And that's it. That the child can live in a place that's safe, so it can provide safety, so no danger coming inside, and that also that the danger of them being hurt or something worse is not coming from inside, not coming from the adults that are living there. And that's it. That is what she's looking for. And I thought about that because a lot of things kind of had dropped recently. I let go of a project on photography. I didn't get back to my friends. There were a number of things. I stopped exercising for a couple of weeks, and I went back to this principle. And then I kind of even realized that having a clean house was kind of on my list of things as the bare minimum. But the house doesn't have to be clean, just not rats living there. So I went back to that. And when we can look at what is really a definition of bare minimum, I think that changes things for how we look at other things in our life, and especially the things that we want to start doing in our life or change in our life, that even this shift of understanding what is really the true bare minimum, it's having clean drinking water and having a home, and nobody is worried that their life is in danger. That's it. That's it. And you stop there. And that was enough reason for me to love what the bare minimum really means, because even when we think about those few things, they're not really few, because in somebody's life, if they're absent from a home, if they're absent from having clean drinking water, if they're absent from even being in a place where they're fearing for their life, this is quite a lot. That is a lot to that person. And when I could course correct that definition that I had given myself for a bare minimum, then something kind of, I would say, a little automatic your brain starts to do when you can simply recognize that, it also can see that as quite abundant. That having a safe home, having the people that you're around, you feel physically safe. Now, emotional safety is a little different. I'm not talking about somebody who's trying to manipulate you, but emotional safety is part of it. But if we're really looking at, okay, I'm not afraid that somebody's going to come up to me, my friend's going to come up to me with a knife, that is really a lot. And from there, you can build from that. And so when I did that, I could come back and say, what is the next thing I want to do from this foundation that I have, from this place of I have a safe home, the people that are around me that I'm living with, we feel safe here. What's the next thing? And then the next thing I was like, okay, I do want the house to be picked up and clean and to get rid of the excess stuff that we had kind of built up, donate that, all of that. And then that was the only thing that I put on my agenda. Because there is already quite a lot of things on your agenda to keeping a safe place and to keep yourself alive. There's getting food, there's the grocery shopping. So when you can see all of those things that contribute already to the bare minimum, you can already see that you're doing so much. I already run to the grocery store every 2 to 3 days to make sure we have food to eat. I already make sure that I take out the trash. That is already something that is keeping our place safe. All of those things are already on the to-do list, and we've already created an even bigger to-do list. So when we can see even the smallest things that we are doing to keep that bare minimum there, we can see how much we are actually doing. And so I added back in, okay, I actually want to, clean the toilet. And by the way, in that bare minimum, you can include showering. You can include showering your children, getting them ready, all of that bare minimum to keep them in your survival mode are all of those things that are included. So they're actually quite big. So then when we add something like get rid of all of that stuff from the holidays, that's already another big chunk that you're putting on that to do. So recognizing how much you actually do to maintain that bare minimum that you have of keeping a safe place for you and your loved ones is already huge. There's the showering, there's the grocery shopping, there's all of that involved. And so the next step, okay, after that, and then I added back in exercising. And I sat with that. I didn't add in anything back in until I could see that I could handle the bare minimum and I could handle the exercise. And so then I sat with that and I could really look at that from a place of there are actually quite a lot of things that I do to keep the bare minimum for my family, to keep the bare minimum for yourself. Because are we actually writing down the amount of time that we spend doing all of those things that are necessary, just like that social worker would come into somebody's house and she would have a long list of things that you don't have on your list. She would make sure that the locks work, that the windows aren't broken, that there aren't rats running around, that there's a railing that's in place. Because part of that bare minimum that you do is when something's broken, you usually fix it. If the railing on the stairway is broken, you fix it. If the lock on your front door is broken, you fix it. That's part of that bare minimum. Is there food in your house? You run to the grocery store. All of those things are going to be on that social worker's list. She has a long list, by the way. So it's really long. But we never think to write down all of those little things and see, wow, I actually do this much. I actually kept my children alive today. That's a lot. That is no small feat. And so thinking of your list, like how a social worker can come into your house, can actually make you see how the bare minimum is not actually so bare. It's quite abundant. And from there you can go, and I can add in exercise today. And I could call up my friend that I said I'd get back to. And from that place of I do all of this list, and then I want to add that back in. Love that bare minimum. Look at that list. Is it like that social worker's list? I bet you it doesn't fill a whole packet. She has a whole packet, by the way. That's all I have for you this week. I'll check back with you next.
Thanks for listening. Listen for a new episode next Tuesday by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Bye for now.